Hey y'all, today I was gonna tell you about how to get into Agartha, because I figured out how to get into Agartha. It's been a couple months of researching, because they don't want you to know how to get into Agartha because it's Agartha, it's supposed to be a mystical land that you can only get into if you have a strong will or if you're a pedophile. But there's an actual method, I promise. So basically, the first step involves, hold on, I gotta change my I gotta turn down the music. Seriously, I gotta turn everything down. It's so fucking loud. Okay, that's better. So, the first step is to build your physique. You gotta build your physique, and it's not just any bodybuilding technique. It's specifically, you have to do the Chinese powerlifting technique, which took me a little bit to figure out, but once you figure it out, it will change your life. Basically, it's not for the weak. If you're a pussy, don't do this. And it's actually one of the main things about it is the rest period between reps is way shorter than you would think. It's only around 60 to 90 seconds, but it really depends on the person, but generally around 60 to 90 seconds. And there's around 3 to 4 you have to do 3 to 4 squat sessions a week if you are at an intermediate skill level, with usually doing a 3x3 rep scheme. And sometimes, if you're feeling insane enough, you can get up to the ranges of 8 to 10 reps. Basically, however far you can push yourself with the 60 to 90 second rest periods. And then, once you have to, and then with the lifting, you have to, it involves alternating lifts every day, which is around 8 sessions a week. And with the technique of you have to have your shoulders over the bar and the torso upright on the couch. I hope I'm making sense here. And you have to make sure to keep your torso as upright as possible. That's the main thing. Another important thing is tempo. You gotta make sure it flows. If it's inconsistent, you're not gonna your gains will not be as good as a consistent rep would be. And then the diet is actually probably the most interesting part, because you don't actually have to do that much. You basically just have to, the typical bullshit: high protein, high carb, low fat. It seriously works, and it's really interesting. And also, it's not just lifting and squats. There's also things like like jogging in the morning right after waking up to get your body started. And post-training that basically involves taking every movement you can do into a segment, so you can truly figure out everything and truly work everything to its fullest potential. Also, about the diet, you gotta eat 3 times a day, because that's generally healthy. And also, get good sleep. Like 8 hours, 10 hours, Really depends on it really depends on the person. So that is the Chinese powerlifting technique that allowed Chinese bodybuilders to get to the point that they're at today. It's actually kind of crazy. And before we continue, I'm gonna have to talk to you about how to regrow limbs, because the government knows about all this. The government is watching you. They're always watching you, and so they're gonna. And that's also why I'm making it at the time I am, because it's only a matter of time before fucking Ben Shapiro or someone makes a public statement talking about how God promised fucking Agartha Israel to Jewish people. It's like 3,000 years ago or something. I don't know. It really doesn't matter how it goes. Just be aware of that, and they're not gonna just take you out, because everyone expects that. So they're gonna try and get you infected with minor diseases. They're gonna they have bioengineered diseases to weaken your limbs. So you have to learn about some techniques, including the Mongolian one-day heal technique, where basically you climb up to the top of a mountain and make sure there's nobody else in a 1-mile radius from you. You start and then once you're at the top of the mountain, you start throat singing and then cut off your leg if it's diseased. And when you do that, your leg will regrow, presumably perfectly healthy. I don't know, I haven't tried it. Now, I've also heard that there's a Zimbabwean one-day heal technique for hands, but I know you have to go to the center of Zimbabwe for that, but I don't know anything else about it. I will get back to you when I do find out. And for arms, I think you're kind of just cooked. I don't think there's anything you can do for arms. So those are some regrow techniques. Also, about that, I'm pretty sure there's some herbs that are able to heal you, but I know there's certain breeds of apples, generally the yellow ones, that have medicinal properties. And also turmeric. Eat a lot of turmeric. Turmeric is really good for you. So that'll help generally, along with possibly regrowing things. So once you've got that, you have to. So next, in order to find, you have all that. Then you have to find Hyperborea, because Hyperborea will allow them to. If you find Hyperborea, that's where you'll find the Agarthan authorities, and they will decide if you will look at. They can read minds, of course. All the authorities can read minds, so they will read your mind and see if you are worthy to get into Agartha. And before that, you have to find Hyperborea, which can be done. In order to find Hyperborea, you have to be enlightened. There's some things about enlightenment. First of all, all the typical methods of enlightenment that you know will not work, because they're not going to tell you they're not going to let the public know an actual method of enlightenment. That's just kind of stupid. They're not going to let the public know a really easy route to be enlightened and find Hyperborea. They want to gatekeep that shit. Because it is Netanyahu's goal to gatekeep Agartha until he claims it. And then he will let everyone in. Because he will turn it into a capitalist shithole like everywhere else is. So, it's just what they did to Cuba, you know? it's as soon as it sets up socialism, they send their 8 fucking soldiers, CIA agents in, and they try and fucking kill everyone and shut down socialism. And that's what happened in so many places. They shut down socialism and replaced it with a capitalist dictatorship. That's why Cuba is such a shithole, because the CIA made it into a shithole. Well, so it could tell its citizens how bad socialism is, even though it's not. So part of enlightenment is understanding that socialism is actually pretty good. You know, actually reading Marxist literature, if you have not read Inventing Reality, you will never be enlightened. That's just the nature. That's just the nature of it. So with that, you gotta... I'd say the easiest way to chase enlightenment is if searching for a natural deity, and then once you find this deity, you have to talk to them, befriend them. You have to make sure you're at a point where you can they trust you enough to like date you and shit. To which then you have to obtain some of their urine. You have to obtain deified urine, and then deified urine is how a part of becoming enlightened, along with socialism. So after drinking the deified urine, you will become slightly more enlightened. And then once you're more enlightened, you'll have to of course convert to Buddhism, because I think everyone knows that's an important step to enlightenment. Buddhism. So after you've done that, you should be mostly enlightened. And the final step after that is overcoming it's about overcoming shame, because too many people feel shame whenever motherfuckers nowadays are ashamed of everything. If a man nowadays thinks something even slightly gay, says something even slightly gay, he has a fucking crisis about it. Like, it's really not that serious when you think about it. Because, like, who cares if you want to kiss your homies goodnight? Who cares if you kind of want to take dick from your homies? If you... is because wanting to give dick to your bitch and your homies. That's not gay. That's bi. And being bi is fine. Nobody gives a shit. Some might say that's a natural state, but I don't believe that personally. There's no problems with it. You need to become like my homeboy. You need to become like my homeboy, who goons whenever he can. He's gooned in the car before. I don't know why. I don't know how. He just did. One time, he was telling me a story about how he gooned in front of his mom, and his mom just didn't give a fuck because she was like watching TV or something, and he was gooning under a blanket on his lap. And that's how he's able to get away with it. You have to be like him. So, once you have done all of that, you will hopefully become enlightened. And once you are enlightened, you will have to drive up to northern... You will have to drive up to northern Canada, which... even for someone like me who lives in, like, Dildo, Newfoundland, which isn't that far from it, it's still a long drive because Canada is just fucking massive, you know? So, what you gotta do is drive up to northern Canada, and once you see the ice walls in the villages, you'll know you found Agartha. You'll know you found Hyperborea. just some things, but there's some things you gotta know about that. First of all, if you drive up to Hyperborea in a Chevy Silverado or any car made by Dodge or Ram, they are not letting you into Agartha. That is peak capitalism behavior, and you need to stop that. The Chevy Silverado is a sign. Owning a Chevy Silverado is a sign that you are complacent with the pedophile, baby-eating billionaires that run capitalism. Agartha is socialist, and you're gonna have to accept that. You know? So with that, if you're in any of those cars, you're gonna have to take a different. Now, if you drive up there in a Chevy, in a regular Chevy, you might have a chance, but they're probably gonna reject you. If you drive up there in something like a Honda CR-V, you are almost guaranteed to be let in. Now, once you get there, once you are let into Hyperborea, you're gonna be inspected. You get to live there for a couple months. Well, they do some background checks. They read your mind to see if they're fine, and to make their decision if they want to let you into Agartha. And some important details include, first of all, if it took it until 2026 for you to start liking armpits, they are not letting you in. Get the fuck out. My culture is not your costume. Second of all, if you enjoy any Chips Ahoy flavor that isn't original, crunchy, or Reese's peanut butter cups, that's a no-go as well. The other flavors are fucking dog shit, and you know it. Third of all, if you have ever used Polybuzz in your life, you are damned to the lake of fire, and Agarthan authorities guarantee same-day delivery. Always. Fourth of all, I think we already know this, Agartha is a very socialist area. So, eco-socialism is very prevalent in Agartha, so if you're capitalist, fuck off. If you don't actively know what socialism is, they'll tell you, and if you still choose capitalism over it, they're gonna kick you out of Hyperborea. Also, if you're racist, they're not gonna let you in, because part of the eco-socialism movement in Agartha is founded on unity. That's kind of its whole thing. So yes, even if you're Jewish, you can still get into Agartha. You just need to oppose the ideas of Netanyahu and the state of Israel. Because the Agartha stands by the belief that we need to separate the idea of Israel as a state from Jewish people and Judaism. Israel as a state should not exist because it is an it's based in ethno state, and I don't think we should be having any ethno states. That's what Agartha is about. Agartha is about unity throughout everything. So if you support ethno states and you don't support unity, then I'm sorry, you can't get into Agartha. Now, this one might be this one's kind of weird. It's kind of self-contradictory. I don't know why they let Instagram do this, but if you use TikTok, if you're addicted to TikTok, they're just gonna tell you to kill yourself. You don't have to. You can get off TikTok by just going on to like YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts is basically like TikTok, but the people there are less stupid. There's genuine admiration in the comments instead of just people being fucking dumbasses. And for some reason, Instagram Reels users are allowed into Agartha despite being really fucking racist. I think the only reason why they allow Instagram Reels users into Agartha is because as Instagram Reels users have been getting more people into Agartha than ever before. That's probably it. That's gotta be it. It doesn't make any sense for it to be any other way. So, If you support the act of expanding highways through black neighborhoods and the act of not providing proper public transportation to people in need, you are not getting allowed into Agartha. That disagrees with the unity. Agartha is about unity. You have to always remember that. The same goes for if you go on a New York subway, you see a homeless person in destitute doing something. If you look at a homeless person and your disgust comes from the homeless person's the actions of the homeless person and not from the fact that the fact that there's so many homeless people in the first place, you cannot be led into Agartha because that's a capitalist idea. If your disgust from a homeless person in destitute on the New York subway comes from the fact that they're doing some weird shit and not from the fact that this system that we live in allows for them to reach this...
Narrator narrates all.
Fuck.
Narrator narrates chat. Narrator off.
Ignore that. Okay, so if you genuinely believe... Okay, people who believe... Honest take, people who look at a homeless person destitute on a New York subway... I think there's something on Twitter about this. Twitter discourse, as always, it fucking sucks. If you get into arguments on Twitter for no fucking reason, you're not getting let into Agartha either. Just wanted to let you know that. Just a warning. I don't think any Twitter motherfuckers wanted to go into Agartha anyway. They're... If you look at a homeless person on the New York subway, and your disgust is targeted towards the homeless person in destitute and not the system that allowed the homeless person, I accidentally called the homeless person it, if allowed them to reach such a poor state, then I'm sorry, but you're a liberal. You're a fucking liberal, and I don't think you're able to... There's no way to reason with fucking liberals, and I don't get it. I don't get it. Liberal motherfuckers always are like, why do leftists criticize liberals more than they do conservatives? Because you see, it's because... I just wanted to say, as a leftist, the reason I criticize liberals way more than conservatives is because I respect them. I actually consider liberals worthy of criticism. If it's like a conservative, I'm just going to tell them to kill themselves and move on, you know? But with the liberal, I've given up on conservatives, you know, tell them to kill themselves and move on. But for the liberal, I see the light in their eyes. I see that they want to make the world a better place, but I also see that the system that they've grown up in has indoctrinated them into having the wrong idea on how to make the world a better place. Their heart's in the right place, but they just don't understand how the world actually works. So, and unfortunately, part of that is some of them, if liberalism like that proceeds far into adulthood, then there's not much you can do at that point. Because that's a belief that's they've had their whole life. That's a belief that's been being into them. So it's a sad, sad state of affairs, honestly. But I don't want to give up. Because a lot of people in my life are like that. They're a liberal at heart, but I know they could improve. Also, another thing. If you are wanting to go into Agartha and you genuinely believe that you are at high risk of a woman falsely accusing you of sexually assaulting her, fuck off. I had a friend who genuinely did that shit, and it's like a subject of discussion every time, and he had some good takes, but that was one of the ones that I found really bad, and I'm just like, every single time he brought it up, I'm just like, yeah, I know, and then just, whenever I don't want to argue whenever I agree with someone like that, you can tell that I just don't want to argue. It's only because I don't want to argue with them. Because I know, when they believe something like that, they are not changing their minds. They're never changing their minds about that. So I just kind of give up and agree. And I know that he's not going to change his mind about this because he genuinely thinks that using corporal punishment on children is an actually good way of getting them to behave. And learning that about him after like a year of being friends with him, that was the point where I kind of just gave up on. That was the point of just giving up on trying to find common ground. I tried to before. I always try to find common ground with people because I hate it. I hate disagreeing with people. So I try to find common ground. But if if I'm trying to find common ground with you and you genuinely say that if I walked in on my son dressed up as a girl, I would beat the shit out of him, then there's no common ground there. I'm just gonna from now on, topics of debate's not gonna be interesting with me because I'm just gonna agree with I'm just gonna mindlessly agree. I'm gonna tune you I'm gonna tune with everything you say, tune you out, in one ear out the other. Because at that point, you're not valid. It's just not a valid conversation at that point. At that point, it's just the conversation's kind of pointless. You know, like there is tons of research showing that corporal punishment can lead to people's kids becoming worse off adults, be more likely to become bad people, more likely to become abusive. You know, it's the cycle of violence, and that's why my mom was lucky. That's why, well, my mom wasn't lucky. That's why I was lucky to have my mom as my mom, because my mom, instead to end the cycle, do exactly the opposite of what her mom did to her, and break the cycle, and she broke the cycle of violence, and so I was able to grow up to be well-adjusted. And see, yeah, those kind of talking points of, along with genuinely believing that misandry and misogyny are comparable, because you know everyone is harmed by the patriarchy, and also pointless identity politics are not the way to solve the issue of the patriarchy. Equality is kind of about equality and not making. Equality is about equality and not making a different group of people way worse than the others. Because then you're. Because when you generalize. Okay, so from the perspective of misandry and the very. It's kind of counter. What few examples of misandry I see are kind of counterintuitive, because when you generalize the bad thing, when you generalize the terrible actions of a couple men, of a small portion of the male population to the entire male population, that's a male idea. Generalizing that far is a male idea. You're gonna. Oh. So if you generalize that and use that to actively voice hating men, then some guy's gonna see this and think that all women are like this, which would justify the patriarchy and misogyny. So really, no one's benefited by that. It's just the cycle. And if you men are the oppressors, generally in a lot of situations. Not all men, but a lot of them. More commonly than women, but it's not one versus the other. So when you compare misogyny and misandry, misogyny is way worse, basically always. And that was a massive tangent, but back on the topic of Agartha, getting into Agartha, if you believe in anti-intellectualism, you're not getting into Agartha either, because anti-intellectualism is a capitalist ideal. Capitalism actively defunds education to make its populace as stupid as possible, so they have to rely on shit like, how every single commercial for AI, ChatGPT, it's never anything novel or interesting. It's always an utterly stupid childlike individual, adult baby that can't do the simplest things ever. Asking ChatGPT some dumb fucking question, and it answers like a chatbot would, and with a really stupid question like, "Duh, holy shit, I never would have known." And then that's that, because they want to make the populace as stupid as possible, so they can manipulate them, so they can keep believing this bullshit. It's always the same thing. So, once you got that, you are almost ready to get into Agartha. Now, what you need to know is that they have Agarthans, that socialism. You're going to be given all the money. You're going to work 4 days a week. You're going to get... Your salary is... Your salary is whatever... However much money you and whoever you're going with, if you're going with anyone, need to survive and thrive. You're not going to be a millionaire, billionaire, because I think they should all rot in hell. There are no good billionaires. Not even Gabe Newell. I don't care what you say. Being a billionaire involves being an asshole. That's just how it goes. So, Okay, but actually, Gabe Newell, please overhaul. Please overhaul. Gabe Newell, please overhaul Steam groups, and my life is yours. I need a Discord replacement fast. I already got like 3 motherfuckers out of my fucking Steam group, and I need you to make it as good as it can be. Side tangent, Discord is banned because in Agartha because Discord is a shithole. It is so fucking bad. Agartha completely understands that Discord is a spawn of Saiyan. Same thing with, like, I already mentioned TikTok. Roblox is banned, and if you play Roblox, you are a supporter of kid touchers. I am like 90% sure David Bazuki touches kids. I mean, given how much he supports pedophiles, he's got to be one himself, you know? So, once you've done that, once you've planned out your life, and once you've gotten past all of that, you will be able to finally get into you will be given a can of White Monster. And if you drink that, it will finally transport you to the paradise at the center of the earth. And that's it. You'll be done. Thanks for watching, I guess. I like talking. I didn't want to make this because I like talking, you know. So, thanks for watching. I hope this made your day slightly better. I hope you I hope you enjoyed it, because I know I did. Anyways, goodbye.